What is up everyone? Welcome to the video. I hope you guys are doing well. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my kind of fitness journey over the past 6 years. I can't believe it's been almost 6 years now. Kind of crazy to me. Mind you, I was dabbling in a little bit of fitness before then, but not really serious. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys kind of what I've gone through. I did do a video about 3 years ago sharing my CrossFit journey, which has definitely changed now. I'm still doing CrossFit, but a lot has changed since then, and I figured, you know what, let's do a big kind of recap of my health and fitness journey. Also, if you're not familiar with my channel, I do a lot of content surrounding health and fitness, and it's been a big part of my life. I don't consider myself a professional athlete, but I do consider myself an athlete, and I work hard in the gym, and it's something that I love to do. So without further ado, let's get into the video. When you first look at me, I don't look like a professional athlete or anything. I'm not super lean or shredded, which is totally okay. Not everyone who goes to the gym needs to be lean or shredded, needs to do bodybuilding, needs to do all these things. You can just go to the gym to love it and have a health and fitness journey like that. You don't have to necessarily do sports and things like that. Like I do CrossFit, but I don't necessarily compete as like a professional athlete. Over the years, my body has changed quite a bit. I've gone through a lot. I've gone through a pregnancy in the past year and a bit now. It's going to be a full year since I gave birth soon, and that was a whole journey on its own. So my body did change quite significantly through that, but my body besides that has changed a lot since I've started. When I started, I thought I was strong, but I'm much stronger now. I see a lot more muscle definition. I never realized how more defined my arms could get. I was quite surprised how they have changed a little bit. Same with my core and my legs. Like there is still fat on my body. I want to put that out there, but it has definitely had a lot more definition in it. Like when I first started taking weightlifting a lot more seriously, I was deadlifting 65 pounds for a couple reps, and now my current PR for my deadlift is 305. It's been a couple years just because of pregnancy, but we're almost up there. I deadlifted 285 about a month and a half ago, so we're getting back up to the 300 club. That being said, my strength has increased significantly. It is insane. I never thought I would be able to lift these weights, and it's incredible to just be able to do those things. Like to be able to do a clean and jerk that I did yesterday of 150 pounds. I'm proud of myself. I am super proud of myself, and it's incredible what the body can do when you just keep training. So throughout this video, obviously I'll be sharing kind of the different stages that I've gone through of my fitness journey, but I really hope that this does give you guys a little bit of motivation, especially if you're starting your fitness journey and you're curious, or you want to start CrossFit and you're curious. I'm gonna share all my CrossFit things in here. If you just want a little bit of motivation, I hope that this can provide you some motivation even if you're in the gym or not. So when I started my CrossFit journey, I think it was around the end of 2017. I had just finished my cheerleading career because I was just completely burnt out, and I had a pretty significant arm and shoulder injury. We were trying to figure it out. It comes back around in this whole fitness journey story, so you guys will hear more about it. But I had quite a significant injury, and I was just completely burnt out. Cheerleading took a lot out of me. I was traveling an hour and a half there and then an hour and a half home, so almost 3 hours just to get to practice. I was doing that 3 times a week, and it was exhausting. I loved it. I loved doing cheerleading, but I was just burnt out. And at that time I was also working in a small gym as a receptionist, and I would weightlift here and there during my cheerleading career, but I never really took it seriously. But once I did finish cheerleading, I was like, okay, I really want to start weightlifting. And during this time, that is when like the kind of female fitness influencers started coming out, and it was like the emerging of like the skinny waist and the big butt, like the Nikki Blackader kind of era, if you guys are familiar with that. So I was like, I want to be like that. I want to be like a fitness influencer and all those cool things. And so I started weightlifting. I started following a lot of their programming, how they were eating, and all those things. And honestly, I found it kind of boring. It wasn't really challenging to me. It was good. I was getting a base of like a lot of base muscles. Like I was learning how to do a squat. I was learning how to do some ab work, a lot of arm and chest and shoulder work that I was not doing as much before. So it was giving me a decent base. I'm not gonna lie, but it wasn't the most fun thing for me. Mind you, I know some people do enjoy it. It's fun for them. Me personally, it just wasn't exciting, I guess you can say. So during that time, my boyfriend David was starting to get into CrossFit. He had done it, like dabbled in it here and there, but he was getting more serious, like into CrossFit. He was going with his friend to CrossFit and he was like enjoying it. So I did buy him, you guys probably know this story if you've been following my channel for a while now. I did buy him some tickets to the CrossFit regionals whenever they had that. It was like, I think one of the last years, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so yeah, I bought him some tickets to the CrossFit regionals and we went together to watch it. And that is when there was a huge life-changing point for me. I was floored, to say the least, when I went there. I was like, okay, CrossFit isn't really my thing. Like, I felt like I was never good enough, like that I would never keep up because it's really hard. And if you're interested in CrossFit, I'm sure you've had that same thought, or you have those thoughts. You're like, oh, I can't do it. It seems so hard. A lot of times when we see CrossFit, we see like the big, you know, athletes, and we're like a little intimidated. And you see like crazy people doing crazy things, and I was like, I can't do that stuff. No, like, you know, no. Apparently that changed quite quickly. When I was watching regionals, I sat there and I saw these women. I mean, they weren't necessarily regular athletes, they were regional athletes, and I was just so impressed with what they could do. And it was amazing to me because you saw all these different, I'm gonna speak more specifically for girls because that is what I related to, but there was all these girls of different heights, different shapes, different sizes, just fucking crushing it. I would be so amazed how like one girl could do so good in a running event, and then another girl could do so good in like a gymnastic event. Same with the weightlifting. Some girls were like lifting insane fucking weights, and I was like, this is crazy. And then you saw all these girls like walking around, and they were toned, like they were muscular, but they weren't like the ones that you see in like pro bodybuilding shows on steroids. Like they were muscular and they looked good, and I was like, I want to look like that. And I was like, I want to be like this. These girls are lifting heavy ass weights. Like, I feel like I can do that too. Like, I was actually seeing some of the workouts and I was like, I could do that. Like, I could really try and do that. Maybe not some of the gymnastics-y stuff, but some of the weightlifting stuff, I was like, I can challenge myself to do that. And I was just inspired. I was so amazed. And even then, there was just a beautiful community of everyone supporting everyone, even though they were competing against each other. The crowd was absolutely amazing. And even then, you saw so many different types of CrossFit athletes. You had people who were different shapes and sizes, like I said, but even in the crowd, different ages. You had people who were super old doing CrossFit, people who were young doing CrossFit. And I was like, this is cool. Like, this is amazing. And I was like, why can't I do this? And then that like really kind of lit a fire in me, and I was like, this looks like fun. So that's when I started kind of dabbling in some CrossFit movements, researching about different CrossFit workouts, and a friend of mine was actually had his like certification in CrossFit, and he made me like a super basic plan to kind of follow. And honestly, I loved it. I loved the challenge. I loved like kicking my ass during each workout. It was so much fun. I loved challenging myself with all the weights and everything like that. And then eventually I ended up switching to CompTrain, which is a pretty popular, I guess, training program, especially in the early CrossFit days by Ben Bergeron. I ended up switching to that and I loved it. I did that for years and it fit me really well, and it really honestly made me in one of the best shapes that I have ever been in. And I mean, I did mostly that programming on my own. I wasn't a big fan of doing CrossFit classes. I mean, I don't mind doing CrossFit classes, but I just like to, I've always been kind of like an introvert, and I like training on my own. So I was training more on my own than doing classes, but I did do classes with David every once in a while. And I still kind of do try and jump in on a class here and there just to kind of humble myself. And during that time, it really showed me and humbled me too of some of the weaknesses that I had. That's what's really nice about CrossFit, is that you can be good in one section of CrossFit and then kind of be weak in another section. For me, I was really great at weightlifting. The weights were going up easy. I was excelling in that. But my biggest challenge was gymnastics and cardiovascular endurance and the cardio kind of stuff, like running. Rowing wasn't so bad. I was kind of like mid in that, you know, like rowing wasn't so bad, biking not so bad, running horrible for me. But you know what? I really wanted to challenge myself, and I really wanted to obtain skills, be able to run a lot better. Still part of my passion now to kind of get better. But at the same time, just learning these skills of getting a strict pull-up, getting a handstand push-up, just having more of a core, like it was such a huge thing for me and something that I just loved challenging myself. Like I liked doing the easy stuff, of course, but I also liked challenging myself by working on my weaknesses, which is always great. Like we're never gonna go to the gym and be perfect. And if we're perfect in our workouts and we don't have challenges, then we're not going to improve. So that's what I really like about CrossFit, is that I had all these weaknesses that I really wanted to improve. And at the same time, it's also so rewarding when you finally start to get those skills too. I'm not perfect by any means in a lot of these skills, but once you kind of like get your handstand push-up and then you can kind of lower the height of your handstand push-up, that is honestly so rewarding when you work on your weaknesses, and those do add up. Sometimes you can be frustrated in a workout and you're like, oh, why aren't my handstand push-ups working, or they're not going great, blah blah blah. But at the same time, look where you were a month ago, 2 months ago, half a year ago, where you could probably barely do them. So it's also nice and humbling to think back of, you know, I was able to do it before. It's okay if it's not going great today. I mean, we all have bad and good workouts. It's just reminding yourself that, hey, we've come a long way from working on our weaknesses. So that leads me to my next point. I was doing CrossFit for, I think, a year or something, like a couple years by then. I'm not really sure. Honestly, I'm not gonna sit down and figure out all the timelines. But that being said, with the new intensity of working out, I flared up my shoulder injury that I had from cheerleading, and come to find out I had a labrum tear, and I never fully properly healed it because we thought it was something in my elbow. It was a long story, but I ended up flaring it up. We realized that it's my labrum, and that was a huge bummer. It really sucked. I struggled a lot through that, and I really, like, I've had injury before. I herniated a disc in my back, and this one really did suck because with a labrum tear, in Canada anyways, they're not necessarily going to operate. And for them to officially know if you have a labrum tear, like they can guess and they can kind of do, I think I had an MRI done, but I had an MRI done months later because it does take a long time here to have them done. And I even did it privately, so it was done quicker than the public system that we have here. But it was hard for them to not know whether it was torn or not because there wasn't a flare up. It wasn't necessary. It was just hard for them to see. So the only way that they could tell if it was like really torn and really bad was for them to operate. And here in Canada, that's an operation that they don't necessarily want to do. It's a very invasive operation, and I didn't know if I really wanted to do it either. I might have not even necessarily qualified for the operation just because I wasn't a professional athlete. But at the same time, it really did suck because I kind of had to build the muscles around the labrum tear so that it wouldn't affect it, and that I needed to make sure that I was much stronger on that side. I still deal with this injury today, but it wasn't necessarily CrossFit that, you know, caused the injury. I know, like, a lot of people like to say CrossFit causes injury, which of course, if you're going to ego lift, if you're going to do things that are way out of your capacity, yeah, you're probably going to injure yourself. But if you actually take the time to work on the skills, especially pull-ups, like a lot of people want to jump into butterfly pull-ups, but that's a huge thing for causing injury if you're not good in your strict pull-ups and you're not able to do the capacity for butterfly pull-ups. So that being said, I had to do a lot of work around my shoulder. I still deal with it today. It's not fun, but it's something that I've just had to deal with for the past, I don't know, 4 years. It sucks, but it's just part of my body and how I have to work around it. It's just part of it. So I've kind of dealt with this over the past couple of years, but it took a long time for it to be rehabilitated. And I was actually doing pretty good towards the end of my rehabilitation. It took probably a good year and a bit for me to feel strong in a lot of my movements, to be able to catch a heavy weight in a front rack position, like a clean or even a squat, a front squat. It was just like hard for me to do that for quite a while, but then I finally started to be able to do things comfortably, be able to do kipping pull-ups comfortably, be able to do handstand push-ups comfortably. I was doing double sessions. Everything was going great, man, in my weightlifting career. And I know a lot of you guys saw this on my channel because I've literally showed most of my workouts on this channel. And I honestly thought I would never be able to do a lot of gymnastics movements again or weightlifting movements because of this injury. But here I was able to do it again, which I am so grateful for. However, when I was actually getting into a groove of things, I fell pregnant. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not ungrateful for my pregnancy. I'm very grateful for it, but it did change a lot of how my fitness journey was going. I thought I would go more towards competing soon since my arm was getting better and I felt like I could start maybe dabbling in competing, seeing how it would go. But since I got pregnant, obviously I couldn't do that. And my pregnancy journey, I shared almost all of it on here. It wasn't easy. I did struggle a lot, and I struggled not being able to do the things in the gym that I wanted to do. My pregnancy, in the first trimester, I went in the gym once to try and work out, but I was just so sick for almost 14 weeks straight, and I could do almost like nothing in the gym. It really sucked because the gym has become my happy place. I love to move my body, I love to challenge myself, and that was the one time where I could really work really hard and just have fun. And it was hard that I couldn't do that. In the second trimester, it started to get better for me. I was able to kind of get back into CrossFit. I was tired though, for sure. Like pregnancy fatigue is not easy. You're growing a whole ass human, so at the same time, it makes sense. So at the same time, I was trying to get my CrossFit in, trying to do some lifting, and I was able to do quite a bit. I was pretty impressed with myself, some of the weights I was able to do. However, I ended up coning. So if you don't know, when you're pregnant and your belly stretches out, your abs are stretching out like this. And a lot of times when you're working out and if you kind of flex your stomach a little bit, your abs will start to cone. And a lot of women see this more towards the end of their third trimester. Almost every woman has coning towards the end of their third trimester. However, I ended up having this almost midway through my second trimester, which kind of sucked, that I had to kind of stop a lot of movements. I couldn't practice my strict pull-ups because I wanted to practice my strict pull-ups because if I was going to do this at a heavier weight, my strict pull-ups, then it would be easier once I had the baby and lost the weight that I'd be able to do it. That being said, I was not able to continue doing it. I was only able to do it off of the floor, but I did still keep trying to practice them as much as possible. And I tried to do my best. Once I got into the third trimester, the fatigue, the tiredness, just in general was pretty hard for me, and I really did struggle. I had to stop doing any Olympic lifts earlier on. It was really hard to not compare my body to the other pregnant girls that I saw around me. Like, there was a girl in one of the gyms that I go to. She was pregnant around the same time as me. She looked like she wasn't even pregnant. That's how small she carried. And she was able to do things super easily. Whereas myself, I gained 65 pounds in my pregnancy and I struggled. It was really, really hard, and it was hard for me to do almost any movements. But I still managed to get through. I still managed to try and work out as much as I could. During my pregnancy, I saw my physiotherapist and I worked a lot with her, making sure that I was preparing my body properly for the birth and the postpartum recovery, because I knew I wanted to recover as quick as possible. Not necessarily like I need to recover like that, but I wanted to make sure I was recovering my body properly so that I wasn't further injuring it, because I knew a lot of girls who kind of just jump back into CrossFit right away, like after giving birth, after like their 6 weeks, and they didn't properly recover their pelvic floor or their abs, and now they have issues with their core or even just holding in their pee. Like when they go to do the double unders, they struggle holding in their pee because their pelvic floor is so weak. So I wanted to kind of avoid that. So I really worked a lot on that throughout my pregnancy. And so finally my pregnancy came to an end and I gave birth to my beautiful son Cove. And it was not what I expected. My birth was quite difficult and I had a lot of emotional trauma from that. I still do a little bit. It was a very traumatizing event, to say the least. If you want to watch that whole video, it is on my channel, but don't watch it if you're pregnant, okay? And so I gave birth to my son, but I ended up having an emergency C-section, which definitely was not my plan. I was not planning on going like that, but that's how it went. You know, sometimes you plan things and it just does not go to plan. You gotta go with the flow sometimes. So I had an emergency C-section and everything was okay. I had just lost a lot of blood. Like, I managed to start recovering from it, and I took some time to chill, but however, I really did make sure that I wanted to be up and walking, and that was what the doctors told me. They said the fastest way that you're going to heal is by walking as much as you can. So that's what we did. It was still kind of cold here, but I was out walking, trying to get out and walk every single day. At one point, like the first time I walked, it was like literally like outside of the house kind of thing. I walked to like the end of the street and I could barely make it home, and then eventually I did like around the block and further, and that was something that really helped my mental health, is because I couldn't be in the gym for a while. So I was like, fuck this, I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna freaking walk as much as I can, and I'm also gonna practice like my breathing, because breathing will help the core kind of come back because your core is healing, and also working on some pelvic floor things that I had worked on in my pregnancy. And then at about 4 weeks, I went and saw my physiotherapist. I know it's a little early, so don't obviously recommend this, but it was at the end of my 4 weeks, and I was like, hey, like, can we check things out? How are things going? Like, I want to start getting back into the gym. Obviously not getting back into the gym and weightlifting a shit ton of weight, but you know, getting back into the gym. And we worked on things. My doctor finally gave me the okay at 5.5 weeks, which pretty much 6 weeks. And I was slowly going back into the gym. I did a 12-week program of Mama and Baba Athletics. I shared all this on my YouTube channel, and I did that whole program. It was fucking challenging and I really struggled with it. I struggled for quite a while getting through that because the weights just felt so heavy for me. Like lifting 100 pounds in a deadlift was the hardest thing ever. And just squatting like 65 pounds, I felt like worse than when I first started my fitness journey. I didn't even attempt any gymnastic stuff. I did a lot of biking. I started a little bit of a running program too. It was hard. And it was hard to get back all these skills and very discouraging. I really struggled with kind of feeling just lost and sad that a lot of my skills didn't come back, because like I said, I saw a lot of girls who seemed to have a pretty relatively easy pregnancy and get back into the gym like it was nothing. Mind you, like I said, some of them have some issues now. I'm just glad I took it slow. That worked for me. If whatever works for you, cool. I took it slow. I had to take it slow a little bit, and I'm glad I did, because now my core feels good. It took a while for my core to really kind of heal because of how stretched out it was and all the coning that I had. I still do have just like a touch of coning sometimes if I do like a hollow hold, but other than that, I'm pretty much all healed. I can do double unders without feeling any pressure. Mind you, I'm almost 11 months postpartum, so it does take about a year for your body to fully recover, which I definitely see that. The weights are starting to come back up for me, and it's been a work in progress, but honestly, I'm really happy where I am now, because I felt really discouraged after having a baby, whereas now I'm feeling like, okay, like things are starting to feel normal. Like I can do a box jump now without cutting it too short. Like I was cutting it pretty low, whereas now I can kind of jump up and still be standing high. Same with like my handstand push-ups. I kind of avoided them because I just had no confidence in them. I was just scared to do them. But then when I finally started doing it and I did it, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. And one thing that I did know that made a huge difference in my postpartum journey is when I got my period back and starting to have a cycle again. I got my period back at about 4 months, if I'm not mistaken. And that's when I noticed there was kind of like a switch. The weights started feeling a little bit easier. I was able to push my body a little bit more. I don't know if it has anything, like any correlation or anything like that. I'm not gonna come on here and claim that, but that's when there was kind of like this switch and things started to get a little bit easier for me. And I was like, okay, now I can kind of like feel like my CrossFit strength and all those things in CrossFit are coming back to me. A lot of my confidence wasn't there. Like I said, for the handstand push-ups, I was so not confident in that, and it took a long time for me to even attempt it. And yeah, there was a whole thing with like, I struggled with like a lot of my weights, but also I struggled with some confidence and doing some movements again, because it felt like it was like almost new to me, is how I can kind of describe it. I also just really want to quickly touch on body image really quick. I mean, my body has changed quite a bit throughout my fitness journey, but I really want to talk about body image postpartum, because I took a photo of myself pre-pregnancy and a photo of myself like now, and I weigh the exact same weight. in both of these photos, but my stomach is quite different. I have loose skin on my stomach sticks out a little bit more. So if you're postpartum and you're not feeling confident in your body, or you're like, oh, my body's like changed, blah, 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 it has changed. It's grown a whole ass human, and just because it doesn't look the same, it can still weigh the same. And you know, I was healthy in the first photo and I'm healthy in the second one, and I'm not gonna let that stop me if I have a little bit of loose skin now. It's all part of the pregnancy journey. I brought a beautiful boy into this life and I'm grateful for that. And I know it's hard. Like some days I do struggle with my body image and I wish it looked like it was pre-pregnancy, but at the same time, I'm proud of myself. I went through a lot, I struggled through a lot, but it's something that I definitely have worked through. And please don't fall for the whole bounce back culture. It's not reality. A lot of pregnant women don't look like themselves, like they were pre-pregnancy. It's just an illusion a lot of times. So don't fall for the bounce back shit. It's not worth it. Go at your own pace, follow your own program. Like I said, I saw other women who were jumping back into CrossFit, seemed like they didn't struggle very much, where I was struggling quite a bit. So it's gonna be different for each and every one of us. We're gonna have a different journey, but don't compare yourself to someone else's postpartum recovery. Even if you're in your fitness journey, don't ever compare yourself, because you're all gonna come from different ways of life, different environments, different strengths, different weakness. Never compare yourself, because you're on your own journey and that's all that matters. Anyways, with that being said, my workout journey still continues. I'm almost, like I said, 11 months postpartum, and I'm gonna be continuing to work out and continuing to go through different phases of my life. If I have another kid, you know, that might happen, or I might go into competing. I'm almost at where like my pre-pregnancy skills, like where I was pre-pregnancy, I almost have all those things back, and I'm proud of myself because I put in a lot of work. I've worked on a lot of those weaknesses again, and I'm proud of myself. And if you're looking to go into the gym, you want to start weightlifting, CrossFit, whatever, do whatever makes you happy. Do whatever makes you feel confident. Just because you see someone doing this like booty program doesn't mean you need to do it. I thought I did, and honestly, it was something that I just didn't enjoy doing. But when I found CrossFit, it made me really, really happy. And if you're scared to do CrossFit, don't be. There's there's so many people, different levels. That's what's nice about CrossFit, is that it's all about different skill levels. Like there's always ways to scale a movement. You don't have to go hardcore like what we see most of the time in media on CrossFit, like what we see in the media about CrossFit, like we see them going crazy. It's not all like that in all the gyms. So don't worry about it if you're a little nervous to start. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, give the video a big thumbs up. It truly does help the channel so much. And if you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button down below. You guys know where it is. And don't forget to be unstoppable. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Summer days burn me out, love just brings me down. Cold inside like winter leaves that slowly leave the ground. Hey, you come back, I wanna give you a chance. Love me like you used to, so we can learn again. The skin is getting brown, baby, drink your night.